Buttonholes can seem kind of scary to new sewers, but they're really fairly easy, especially if you know all the steps that you have to do. I'm going to show you how to do a one-step buttonhole on the Singer Professional 9100. I have a swatch here of some wool fabric that would be commonly used for a coat or another outerwear garment. I have a double layer and I have some interfacing inside just like it would be on a placket on the front of a coat. So we are going to be stitching a buttonhole right on this piece of wool. The first thing that I need to do is mark my placement for the buttonhole. So I have the button that I'll be using. I'm going to place that right on the fabric where I want it to be, and then I'm going to mark its position on one side with a line. So I'm marking the side that's closest to the edge of the fabric, the fold of the front of the placket. Once I have that first line drawn, I'm going to draw a second line, perpendicular, so I'm making a capital T shape. That's going to be my mark for how I do my buttonhole. So my fabric's ready, now I have to get my machine ready. First thing I'm going to do is choose a buttonhole stitch. So on the 9100, you can choose a regular standard bar tack buttonhole by selecting the 0 on the direct selection menu. That's a very common buttonhole, so that's why it's super easy right on the front. All of the length and width settings are set automatically for you. There are several other buttonholes though. If you wanted to go to the second stitch menu by clicking the mode button and pulling out the first menu card, there are stitches 14 through 21. Those are all buttonholes. So you have some keyhole buttonholes, some round buttonholes, you even have a stretch buttonhole. So there's lots of buttonholes to play around with. We'll be doing a standard bar tack buttonhole, so the one on the direct selection menu. So once we choose that stitch, that's all we have to do, everything's set for us. We're going to find our buttonhole foot. The buttonhole foot looks like this. It has a picture of a button right at the top, and it's labeled with a D. So the way that this foot works, the button is going to fit in this upper compartment. So this slides up and down. It can fit a variety of size buttons. So we're going to open it up and place our button right inside, and then close it until the button is snugly held right in there. Down here is a metal pin, so this is how we're going to attach the buttonhole foot to our machine. So I'm going to take off the standard presser foot by pushing on the presser foot release lever right behind the needle right there. I will put this foot aside, and I'm going to put the buttonhole foot on the machine with the button to the back of the needle. So the button's behind the needle, and I'm going to put that pin right under the presser foot holder and gently lower the presser foot holder down until it snaps into place. You might have to move the foot around a little bit in order to find the place where it snaps in. I'm also going to pull down my buttonhole lever, which is this lever right here. You want to make sure you pull it down all the way, and you also want it to be in between these two prongs sticking out on the left side of your buttonhole foot. These prongs are how your machine is going to know when to turn around based on the size of the button, so it's important that this is all the way down and that it's between those two prongs. Okay, so my machine is all set up. Now it's time to sew my buttonhole. I'm going to take my fabric and place it under the foot. And if you need to, you can use the presser foot lifter to raise the presser foot even further, just to get it under there. And to line it up, you want to get that first horizontal line that we made right in the little window of the presser foot, right here. It should be pretty much filling up that window. And then the second line we made, the perpendicular line, should be centered on the foot, so going directly up and down the foot this way. Once you have that all set, you can go ahead and just kind of hold the upper thread out of the way and start sewing. And the machine does all the movement. It's just your job to kind of manage the fabric, make sure it's not getting caught up on anything. This machine starts at the bottom and stitches up for the buttonhole, so just keep that in mind as you're lining up your fabric. And you'll push the pedal down until the machine stops on its own. So at this point, it's stopped. We're all finished with our buttonhole. So I'm going to lift my presser foot and pull out my fabric and trim my thread tails. And here is my beautifully stitched buttonhole. At this point, I would take a hand sewing needle and thread both upper threads through the eye and bring them to the back of the fabric and tie all the thread tails in a knot and just cut them off. Alright, so our buttonhole is stitched, but the button can't get through because it's still a solid piece of fabric, so we need to open it. To do that, I'm going to take 2 straight pins. I'm going to use these for protection so that I don't accidentally cut through my buttonhole. I'm going to put one at each end, at the bar tacks at each end, so that's the top and bottom stitches. The pins are going to prevent me from slicing through my thread. I'll take the seam ripper that came with my machine, and I'm going to go right in the center, down through all of the layers, fabric and everything, being very careful not to cut through my thread. And I will cut all the way to the end with the seam ripper, and it'll hit that pin and prevent me from going through my stitches. Then I'll turn it around, and I will slice right through the other side to open my buttonhole. So I can take my pins out, and my buttonhole is open and ready for a button. So if I was doing a whole row of these down the front of a coat, the one-step buttonhole is really helpful because the machine does all of the figuring out of the settings and when to start and stop and turn around, so they would all look exactly the same and beautiful. So see, buttonholes are easy. Buttonholes can seem kind of scary to new sewers, but they're really fairly easy, especially if you know all the steps that you have to do. I'm going to show you how to do a one-step buttonhole on the Singer Professional 9100. I have a swatch here of some wool fabric that would be commonly used for a coat or another outerwear garment. I have a double layer, and I have some interfacing inside, just like it would be on a placket on the front of a coat. So we are going to be stitching a buttonhole right on this piece of wool. The first thing that I need to do is mark my placement for